first episode of Tales from the Gig. I am Colin.
And I am Kevin.
We wanted to provide a podcast that's a little bit of a glimpse inside the virtual green room where musicians always tell their stories and chat and get into trouble and make each other laugh. And
secret place.
Exactly. And I had the idea for this podcast, I don't know, a few years ago, talking to my drummer in Georgia, Charlie Korch, who seems to always have a great story from any gig that he plays. It's usually some crazy person bringing their clarinet to the club or anything like that. I thought it would... First, I wanted to just interview Charlie and put it out, but then I realized just about every musician has a good story or a few. And chatting with Kevin now, we realized we both had a few stories. So
a couple. I, for some reason, can't remember a lot of mine.
That's all right. They'll come to us as we're chatting.
Might be a good thing, though.
But yeah, so the idea initially was we were just going to chat, and this first episode will just be us talking. But then we realized, thanks to modern technology with Skype and phone calls and things like that, that we can bring other artists on from around the country and let them tell their stories and maybe showcase their music a little bit. And
yeah, we both have a pool of musicians we worked with for, me about 30 years or so. So it's like call your friends, basically.
Exactly.
In the sense that are still
that's a fantastic segue, Kevin. Tell the world and the listening public a little bit about yourself. Why should they care what you have to say?
About me.
About
me
you.
First. Why do I have to go first?
Because you're the one sitting across from me, so you go first.
It's your house. So
Exactly.
Well, I started this path or this journey, I guess. From what I can remember, I was like 5 years old. And I begged my mom that I wanted to play guitar, believe it or not.
Nice.
For those of you who don't know.
a drummer.
Yeah, I'm a drummer and a percussionist. So, and I pestered, and finally I just remember one day she took me to a music store, and the salesperson tried to get me to, play a guitar or something like that. But he said, "Hey, your hands are just too small." And so he says, "Here, buy him a drum pad and some sticks." And the rest, as they say, is history. I became a drummer. But I was like, frustrated. I hated that thing. Absolutely hated it. I was like, how the fuck are you supposed to play Zeppelin with a drum pad, Because I was already listening to that stuff.
It's not as sexy as a guitar.
No, exactly. It was this little square thing and all like that. But then, went into school band and ended up having to get a drum set and... Another one of my early memories that I should have realized that there was something going on is that, how parents make you go to bed 9 o'clock or something like at 9:30, whatever like that. Well, there was a show called the King Biscuit Flour Hour. It was played on DC 101. I was living in Maryland. I grew up in Maryland. And this show, I think it came on at 10 o'clock or something like that. But I loved it because it was, that's where I first heard Working Man by Rush.
Nice.
All the Allman Brothers stuff, Peter Frampton, a lot of that stuff. That's where I got turned on to that. And so, you're supposed to be going to bed. Well, I would take my clock radio. And if you remember, I don't know if you remember these, but the clock radios that had the little numbers that would flip down.
Oh yeah, we had one of those. It was vintage when I was little, but we had them.
Oh, vintage. There you go. That's nice. That's a kind word. I'm a little older, so. But anyhow, I would take that and stick it under my pillow, and then I would lay my head on the pillow, so it it wouldn't go outside of my bedroom. But that was one of my early signs that I was going to be addicted to this.
Back when radio was ran by humans.
Yeah. Back when I was the grease man out of DC 101, and my mom hated the fact that we were listening to that guy everything, but we loved it. So that was, like you said, that was back when they had real DJs that were really cool and everything like that.
Before Clear Channel.
Yeah.
Unless at some point we're on Clear Channel, and then we love Clear Channel.
Oh, yeah.
Because we will gladly sell out. But currently we're indie, so we can say things like that. Yeah.
But and then I was in all the bands. Started in elementary school. I think it was third grade or something like that. And parents caught me a little used kit, and all the way up. And one of the moments that I knew that something was really special in my life with music was I remember I was ninth grade. I was playing a timpani part, and when I was a freshman. And I hadn't made the main band. I was in what we nicknamed baby band. Freshmen were in it. It was all the prep work to get to the main band. This was in Glenelg High School in Glenelg, Maryland, not far outside of Columbia, Maryland. And I don't remember the piece, but I was playing timpani, and I did this big timpani roll, and I swear, even to this day, that my feet lifted up off the floor. It was just this feeling of energy, and I remember literally looking around thinking, did anybody else see that? I thought I levitated and everything.
Right.
So that was definitely one of those moments that was a clue telling you, what's going your future and everything.
That's awesome.
And then, I kept going on all through high school. I was very fortunate to have an incredible music department there with Mr. Barry Ensman, who's been quite a mentor. He's, as you noticed the other day, we both wear Converse, and I told you I always wear these red ones. Well, he was the one that some reason turned me on to that.
Oh, nice.
We'd wear concerts, and he'd in his tux and everything like that, but
right.
he'd have red Converse on. Of course, we all thought that was cool as shit. That, and he'd come in Monday morning with sunglasses on, so we all knew what was that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And then I went on to Lebanon Valley College, which isn't very far from here. It's in Annville, PA,
okay.
and met the famous Tom Stroman, who's still a local musician now, sax player, piano, and everything.
Nice.
Great teacher, another great mentor. And it turns out Barry and Tom went to college at Lebanon Valley back in the 70s.
Oh, nice.
So it was a big connection. And then that's when I started performing in bands, and got the addiction.
Since the show, I'm curious, I'm going to interview you a little here.
All right.
Since the show is about gigs, when did you play your first gig? Do you remember? Or what you'd consider? I mean, we all kind of have our own definition.
Yeah. Actually, I would say in high school.
Yeah.
I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was my senior year in high school.
Nice.
Two of the guys that got me to go to Lebanon Valley College, actually, his Buddy Oliver, he was playing bass, and Glenn Landrum on guitar, and a guy named Jeff Gray played guitar as well. And we played a party. I remember schlepping all this gear in and everything. I don't even know if anybody sang or not. We just played
in some guy's basement.
No, it was outside on their back porch.
That's upscale. Yeah. Nice.
So that was my first actual gig.
Yeah.
First actual paid gig would have been in college.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Paid gig would have been, because I played all kinds of gigs. Community bands and all that kind of stuff, and theater bands and all that stuff. But first paid gig, I think, would probably be a country band. Gosh, I can't even remember the name of that band. But up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I was going to Wilkes University, and I got hired to play in a country band. The singer's name was Jack Hart, is all I can remember. But I remember the first gig we had, I was horrifically nervous, which reminded me back out in college when I had to do a recital.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, doing jury performances and stuff.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It was horrific. I was so nervous. I was literally that guy that was puking in the bathroom before he went on.
The stereotypical. Yeah.
Yep. And then his first gig when we were doing up in Wilkes-Barre, it was some country bar or something, I forget, but I was in the back doing push-ups and sit-ups and running in circles, doing everything I could try to burn off this extra energy and all. But, that was... I remember the guy said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just really nervous." But now it's totally different.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny how quickly that changes.
Yeah. I still get the butterflies, though, which I think is great. It's more excitement than it is anything else.
Yeah, especially if it's a new thing or if you're,
Even when we were playing the other night in Mechanicsburg, or New Cumberland, rather.
Yeah.
And you get just that little...
Yep.
Adrenaline
that
rush
anticipation. Yeah, like before the starter pistol goes off in a race. Yep, absolutely.
I like that,
Yeah.
It tells me that I'm still doing the right thing.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, how about more recent gigs? Who you been playing with lately?
You?
Yeah, me, other than me. That's
We'll tell the story briefly. Is like I was searching. I had been working in the cannabis industry and no longer in that. Long story there. Don't worry about it. But anyhow, I was searching for a gig. Every time I get away from music, it somehow pulls me right back. And that's really what happened. And I had picked up a gig filling in for a local country band. Guys I've worked with before, Pat Naylor, Billy Ziegler. Guys that I learned a lot from, and I'm very appreciative for all the work that I've gotten through them and all. But their drummer Bobby Starrett had some heart issues, so they hired me to fill in for a couple months, which I was really grateful. Got my chops back and had a bunch of fun. But that pulled me back in. And recently, so then I was searching Craigslist.
Good old Craigslist.
and here's this guy who posts a blues band.
Musicians are the only people other than like sex perverts that use Craigslist.
Well, I think that's gone now. They got rid of all that on Craigslist.
Okay, well then it's just musicians now.
It's just the musician perverts. But yeah, so I answered, and I was reading through that and everything. I don't really remember everything in it, but I was like, man, I was like, yes. So I contacted you right away.
I think every line in that ad reflected a bad audition or a bad musician I'd had. I was trying to be as specific as I could to try to weed out. And that was probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
So,
yeah, it's been a little while.
And then we just started texting, I remember.
Yep.
We were texting back and forth, and it was for me personally, it was just like there was a vibe right there. It was just something.
Yeah, definitely.
We connected, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. We played our first gig together right at Christmas, wasn't it?
Pickup.
Yeah.
Never played together, never rehearsed, never.
Sorry, people who hired us for their private party, but it went well. It was good. But right on. So that's Kevin, everybody.
And then
what else you got?
I'm working with Andy Alonso,
yeah.
local guy, and a bunch of other people that come in, and it's Andy Alonso and friends. So that's currently what I do, and I freelance here and there, just whoever calls, basically. But your turn.
My turn. All right. So I'm Colin.
Hi, Colin.
Hi. So
It's like
I'm going to
Al-Anon meeting.
Exactly. I've been a musician for. It's about the same actually. That's kind of a. Yeah, I think addicts might end up with more money than at the end of the day. But
Certainly.
Not to get too dark there. But if we Tarantino a little bit, like Kevin said, we just met a few months back. I moved up here to Pennsylvania from Atlanta, Georgia, back in July of 19, and had a very good band down there that I'd played with for a really long time and recorded with, and they got to be family. And that was one thing I was nervous about with moving up here, was finding a band. It's hard. You go through a lot of duds. And first I tried to put the word out, like on Facebook and people that I knew, trying to avoid Craigslist. And just nothing really came of it, and started playing some solo gigs and stuff like that just to try to fill time and have something to do. And finally I just gave up and put the ad on Craigslist, and got a couple weirdos, of course, right off the bat.
You always get that.
But yeah, when your message finally came through, it was like, all right, this guy doesn't seem like he's going to murder me if we meet somewhere. And it's worked out. So we finally got some footing to get a band together. So if there's any bass players in the greater Harrisburg, Central Pennsylvania, Susquehanna Valley area listening, give us a call. But once we get a bass player, or get Joel to move up here, because I know Joel's listening.
Hi, Joel.
We can.
Haven't met yet, but
exactly. We will have our band up and going properly. But gigs have been coming in steady, so I think 2020 is going to be a good year.
Oh yeah.
But let's see history.
So you got to go backwards now.
I'm going to go backwards now. So, third grade. I wanted to play the trumpet. I remember, and anybody who's played in a band with me has heard this story, because it's a go-to for how I ended up being a guitarist. But I asked my mom, who was a musician, for a trumpet, and we lived in Tampa, Florida at the time, or actually Palm Harbor, Florida, a small suburb of Tampa. I always tell Tampa because nobody knows Palm Harbor.
Right.
But I told her I wanted a trumpet. She I think had in her head that there were lots of trumpet players, and was worried about how successful I would be at that. Mm-hmm. So again, mind you, I was 8 when you're in third grade, somewhere around there. I didn't know what a trumpet looked like. I just heard it because my dad's a big jazz guy. So I remember hearing like Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie. And man, the sound of trumpet's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
So I told her that, and she went to the local music store, got me a trombone, and told me it was a trumpet. Brought it home. I put it together. I didn't know what we didn't have school band that young down there. It didn't start until middle school in Florida.
Oh, okay.
So it was a few months before I had a first private lesson with Mr. Stovall. I don't know how I remember his name, but he was a middle school band director. He was a tuba player. And I remember showing up and saying I was here for my trumpet lesson, and him looking at me and being like, "That's a trombone, son." And I was heartbroken. My mom had betrayed me.
Did she ever tell you why she did that? Or
years later, she finally told me, and she said that was it. That there were because like my sister was in high school at the time, and there were 50 trumpet players, and there were always.
Gotcha.
She thought low brass I'd have better. I was a big kid, I've always been a big guy, so I think she thought I'd find more success in low brass.
You know what's funny about that is that I kept both my kids out of the percussion section
because
for
everybody's a
basically
drummer.
the same reason.
Well, you could have bought him a piccolo and told him it was a snare drum. That was So yeah, I played trombone all through school, through middle school. Did all the honor bands, marched all the low brass instruments, did drum corps, did all that. And
I never did drum corps.
It was a blast. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Some of my most favorite memories from grade school are from doing drum corps, marching tuba, doing that. But remember, probably I got my first guitar pretty soon after, but like every kid with an acoustic guitar in his room, didn't really do much with it. I think I was probably 9 or 10. I spent Christmas money and went to Thoroughbred Music in Tampa, which is the coolest music store on the planet. There's a tree inside it, like a growing tree in the middle of the store. It's really cool. But I bought a Fender nylon string acoustic for $100 with Christmas money, and my mom bought me the Hal Leonard guitar method, which is still the same. Like I just bought it for my stepdaughter, and it's the exact same book, like same pictures and everything. And then she bought me a Beatles songbook, and I remember it sat in my room. Probably it was until we moved from Florida to Georgia, and like not the standard new kid, not knowing anybody. I picked the guitar up and started like picking at it. I got obsessed with it, like most guys that do what we do. You know, I was immediately. I mean, to the detriment of schoolwork and, you know, everything else. And I realized, especially as like puberty came on and I was interested in girls, like you can't write a love song on a tuba. Like, we're not German. There was no like
be
love
interesting if
polka.
you did, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could have tried. I would have gone a different direction with that. Yeah, exactly. But I that was when really girls were what got me like super into guitar. And
how many stories of those?
Yeah, no, it's such a cliche.
Yeah.
And started pretty immediately putting a band together. Like I remember it never seemed like a solo pursuit like brass instruments did, you know, other than obviously being an orchestra and stuff. But like as soon as I could play a song on guitar, I wanted to play it with other people. And I remember that like being the strongest thing, which I still get that. You know, I still don't really like just sitting in my living room playing my guitar. I'd rather play with other people. And
I don't like sitting in a practice room. I did it for years.
Yeah, and if I have to, if I've got a song I need to learn, I'll woodshed it, you know, just like any of us. But even if I just do like a Facebook Live video, so I'm like interacting with people, that's what gets me off with music. It's like what you were talking about with the butterflies. Like that's how I know I'm still need to be doing it kind of thing. But my first band was with my buddy Peter Stapor. He knew every Beatles song on the planet that's ever been written. And in 7th or 8th grade was playing drums and guitar and just a freak music genius. He's a private airline pilot now. But he could sing. That was the big thing because I couldn't sing. I never sang back then. So we started a band, and I remember we took the name Free Flight because it was a band that my dad managed back in the 60s, and we thought it was cool and rock and roll sounding. So we played our first gig. I'm sure there were ones before this, but we played our 8th grade yearbook signing in our middle school. The video is still floating around somewhere. If anybody on Facebook is listening or anything and has that VHS, I know it's out there. I would love to get a copy of it so I could digitize it. We did that, and then our little town that we lived in Georgia, Lawrenceville, had a town square that they would do events for like the 4th of July and things like that. And I remember the guy that owned our local pawn shop where we'd go to buy like guitars and stuff like that was in charge of booking the entertainment. So sight unseen, just because we spent a lot of money as pawn shop, booked our band for their 4th of July. Now there were like 3,000 people there.
Oh wow!
Way bigger than any sort of show we should have been playing. And I remember he gave us like 2 slots before the fireworks, so like it was like prime time. I'd kill for a gig like that now.
How about it? We talked to the
absolutely.
We have this slot, please.
And we were in no way prepared. I mean, we had maybe 20 minutes worth of music. We had to put a band together. Peter, because he could play every instrument, we put an ad out. Back then it was AtlantaMusicianClassified.com. Craigslist wasn't a thing yet.
Right.
I mean, this was like 1997. So, I mean, the internet was barely a thing. And I remember we put an ad out for a drummer and a bass player because all I could play was guitar. And then whatever we found, Peter was going to do the other of and sing. So we found a drummer, this guy named Matt, who was 28 at the time. And in hindsight, that had been really weird for him because we were like,
how old are you? You were like 12,
I was
13?
12, yeah.
Wow.
So the videos of those are hilarious because it's these two kids with this like grown man.
This grown man behind him.
Yeah, I remember he managed a McAllister's Deli, and I remember being so at the time we're like, yeah, of course he's in our band, but like looking back, like when I was 26, I'm like, what the hell was that guy doing? Like that was kind of weird. Yeah. And he wasn't a very good drummer, which was kind of upsetting. He was the least talented member of the band, which Matt, I'm sorry if you're listening, but hopefully you kept up or practiced, but it wasn't very good. But yeah, we played that gig, and I remember that was my first gig for people that weren't like classmates or anything, and that was when the addiction hit. I mean, that was being able to play for that many people, and they were
the rush.
They were being polite because we were young. Yeah. I know they were, but like that rush of like, oh my god, like they're singing along because we're doing classic rock covers. We didn't have our own stuff, and being able to get three guys together and you're making a song like that was now it seems like such a simple thing because we do it all the time, but like it was such a big deal. I still remember that like vibe and that how like amped we were coming off that stage, you know, and that hook.
Same thing pretty much when I did that party. It was the same way.
Yep.
All your friends are going, wow.
Yeah, I can't believe you did. How'd you do that? And you're like, I don't know. Like we just did it.
Well, and I remember even playing it. I was nervous in the middle and being concentrated, but it wasn't so much about them watching us. It was just that energy, that feeling.
It's just nervous energy.
That
absolutely.
You were on stage playing music with your buddies.
Well, and when you're at that level, musicianship-wise, it's almost something I miss is you're always a half step from disaster.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, it's rare you get a surprise.
Right.
You know, I mean, unless you've got like a guy you don't know. If you got a random playing with you, you know, you might get that. But no, back then it was that like, man, this could fall apart at any time.
Hang on.
Yeah. But yeah, so all through high school, we did the, you know, house parties. You know, we played all the events at our school, all the Battle of the Bands and stuff. And I know we took ourselves very seriously all through school. We were convinced we were going to be world famous.
Right
and,
on, yeah.
I remember we actually sent a demo, which I have on my phone now. I found a CD of it and digitized it. We sent it to a contact my dad had at BMG Entertainment.
Oh, right on.
Thinking like, well, of course he's going to call us back, you know, and being so crestfallen when we never heard. We told everybody like we're going to have a record deal. It's Dave Matthews. It's the same label Dave Matthews is on. Like, it was garbage. I mean, it was awful, you know. But I remember got into recording at the time. My band director Charles Brown, who was probably my biggest supporter of like, yeah, you can do music, you know, just stick with it. Had spent some of his band budget on recording gear. Like pretty legit recording gear, multi-track setup. He had a server rack full of, you know, I mean, it was all to DAT at the time. Nothing was computer based.
I was thinking because my first one was a 4-track.
Yeah, so me too. I had the Tascam 414. Yeah. Yep. So this was a step up from that. We had 8-track, I should say, onto DAT. So he let us use it. Like we could use it after hours. He'd let us come and go in the band room. So we recorded all the time. I mean, we had hundreds of hours of us just goofing off and writing and stuff like that. So that was a little different than most people's like high school garage band, you know, type. And nowadays everybody's got, you know, their laptop that they're recording and making music on. But back then that was a pretty big, yeah. That wasn't record something. Yeah. None of the other bands at our high school did that. You know, they were garage bands. So we of course thought ourselves much loftier than we were. But yeah, I got my first gig like with a band that wasn't buddies a month before I graduated. It was the Patrick Vining Band. I still know Patrick really well. He lives in Atlanta doing like 40s style, we called jump blues, but like swing basically. Traveled all over with him, learned every bit of like showmanship and stagemanship from him and doing those shows. That's where I started singing in earnest, was in that band, and played with him for a while. Did the standard, like you were saying, you know, freelance work, pick up gigs, kind of whatever came along. I played bass for a while. I put a guitar down for a year and played bass. Always came back to guitar. And then started to realize very quickly I didn't like being in someone else's band.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if it's as you get older, your bullshit meter. You know,
well, I think you want to do things certain way.
Yeah, there was a lot of not liking the way bands were being ran. You know, guys that had no business running a band, guys that had no business singing in public, running a band. You know, and expecting.
Well, that's like we were talking one day. I asked you if you were a drummer. You sure you weren't a drummer? Because it seems like drummers are always the one that ends up doing the bookings or all the organization, getting it
Right.
I mean, Ron from the Badleys, if he ever listens to this, he'll say the same
He'll
thing.
corroborate.
Yeah, and it just seems. And I listened to a podcast, Bob Lefsetz, and he says the same thing. So what is it with drummers? And maybe it's because we're not out front. I don't know, but that was one of the things that we resonated with. Is like, I remember I was doing everything, and here you're saying, well, you're doing everything.
Yeah. Well, and I started doing that because so many bands I was in, nobody else would do it.
Nobody else would do it.
So it's like, hey, guys, we don't have anything on the books.
Yep.
Like, have you called any? Well, something will come up. It's like, no, it won't. Like,
Somebody will call. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And just getting frustrated from that. And, like playing any bar, you get to know the person who books you. You know, they come up and introduce yourself. So it's very easy, especially now with Facebook, to just shoot them a message of, hey, I was at your bar last weekend. Mm-hmm. Ignore that band I was playing with. I've got this band, and that was how all that started. And going out and beating the pavement, pre-Facebook, printing out demos and taking them, I'm going to hit these 10 clubs today, drop a CD off, make sure it gets in someone's hand, and then, start blowing up the phone. Yep. And, it's not rocket science. It's just sticking with it. Yeah, it's work. Exactly.
The public sees us on stage performing.
Yep. Yeah, they don't understand that's the fun part. That's the part. That's the payoff for all the other work that we're doing.
And like we always say, it's like we don't get paid to play.
Right.
We get paid for all the outside.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Before, after, and all
getting
the
to play
stuff.
is almost like the extra payment because we're not making enough on the gig.
And that's not just us, folks. I mean, that's you'll talk to musicians.
I guarantee every musician we bring on this show will say the same thing. Yep. Whether they have a booking agent, whether it's work. It's so much work. And if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it because there's plenty of other ways to make better money.
Yes.
But so that's my background. I ran a what I would call a large project studio in Georgia. I brought bands in and we recorded. We've got a 16 channel setup, which is what we are currently speaking to you through, which is ridiculous overkill for recording our podcast, but we had it, so it's what we're using.
Yep. Use what we have.
Exactly. And we're getting it set up here, but that's my background. So
it's very interesting. We have a lot of things in common that way too. And one of the things I noticed when you were saying that too is, isn't it amazing how school band directors
makes a huge difference.
We're such big influences.
That's Charles, and he was a French horn player. So he played flugelhorn, so he did some jazz, but wasn't like a rock guy. Didn't play guitar. But him and Kevin Carwile, who actually did all the horn charts and the sax stuff on this new record of mine, and he and I have played together pretty consistently the last 20 years. He was, at the time, a student teacher at my high school. He had graduated a few years earlier, but he was teaching the jazz band. He taught me improv. He's the one that taught me you don't need a degree to gig, which saved me a shitload of money. So thanks, Kevin, for that. But no, the stuff he taught me in that improv class, which now was 22 years ago, I use every gig. Like I wouldn't have a single gig that I've played since then not from the stuff he taught me in that. And I remember Charles treating me like an adult because I think he saw that I was going to be a musician. He knew it pretty quickly. And hopefully if he's listening, he can corroborate on Facebook. But he was an ex-Marine, band director. And I think he saw right away, like, okay, and I'm sure as teachers, I mean, from teaching private lessons, you can always tell, you can separate the wheat from the chaff. Yeah. And I think he saw that because he definitely gave me a lot more leeway than others. Like I said, we could come and go from the band room, and he's not a band director anymore, so he can't get in trouble for this. But we could come and go. I mean, we would spend Friday nights till midnight in the band room recording because he knew he could trust us, and I think he could see that was.
Yeah, I don't think he can even do that at all anymore.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
They shut the doors and lock them and chain them.
But like that. That's what a teacher is supposed to be.
Yeah,
whether it's in school or whether it's in life or whatever. That was
totally.
And that was I don't think I would be a gigging musician if it wasn't for that. The stuff that Kevin taught me as a working musician, because at the time he was a very busy call sax player in Atlanta, and then Charles teaching me just how to be a human.
Absolutely,
that makes a huge difference.
With my high school director Barry, I mean, he didn't insult us or put us down in any way for the music that we were listening to or wanted to do and everything.
Yeah, Charles was the same way, supportive of everything. Yeah. Everything was legitimate, no matter how ridiculous.
Without a doubt, I mean, he was very demanding.
Yep.
I mean, and we had a top band. We went to we got top awards, everything.
Yeah.
Went to Canada, went down to Florida, all these big music festivals and everything. And actually, my high school senior year, we went to the Montreux Jazz Festival.
Oh, nice.
Which
That's
was
really cool.
fantastic.
I think you posted a picture of that on Facebook, didn't you?
A while back. or so,
Yeah.
Well, I might as well say at the time. And anybody who's listening to this was in that band. Jeff Wald probably will remember too. Well, the percussion, we were all jammed in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were in Switzerland, right on Lake Geneva.
Right.
And there was a beach right behind
I think there's a song about that, isn't there?
Yep. And we were playing up in what they called the Bird's Nest, I think it was. And it was right at, just outside the festival and everything. And Barry had a hard time with the drummers to keep us looking forward because there was a beach behind us. And there's this thing over there, they didn't have to wear tops.
Yep. Which I'm sure was great for a 16-year-old kid that's never been out of the U.S.
Exactly. So we were quite... our focus was elsewhere, let's just say. But anyhow, band directors, it's, a little PSA for this now is like, today, my kid's mom, she's still a teacher, and the bullshit that she has to go through.
It's ridiculous.
Is ridiculous, and she's teaching K-5, but, listen to any band director or anything, they can't teach. They can't do what they did for us.
No, yeah, it's very difficult for them to. Kevin, this sax player, is a high school band director now and has been for a long time. Very good at it, very successful at it. But the stories he tells me of just the shit bureaucracy he has to deal with.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Well, and I know the thing, Barry used to yell at us because he was very demanding.
Yeah.
He used to open up all the time the rehearsal. He would write rhythms on there on the board, and we had to sight read. And oh my God, it was one of those. You just hide in the back, hope you're not counted.
Right, hope nobody's looking at you. Play quiet
so
enough that hopefully he can't hear you.
Yes. Oh my God.
Well, this was pre-safe spaces,
Yep.
and you could.
And we'd be in the middle of some song, and somebody would mess up this or that, and he'd stop us and yell at us.
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't happen today.
Right. Oh, no. Yeah,
But
you'd be sued.
We respected him.
Of course. Yeah.
We had a great
he
amount of
expected a
respect
lot
to him.
from you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing the difference that makes. It's Kevin. I've seen him with his students. I've gone, and when I still lived down there, I'd go work with his jazz band and stuff, and he teaches them right. He's got that. It's nice to see that there are still, and I think it's just in the arts. I think in the gen ed stuff, I don't know that the teachers can have that freedom, but in the arts, they don't have to be there. They're choosing to be there. So part of that, I think, comes with, hey, if you're choosing to be here, this is what I expect from you, kind of thing. So, and his kids are all great. He's got a really good group of kids and everything, but Kevin, his bullshit tolerance is very low, and he's always been like that, and that definitely reflects.
Yeah.
You were talking about getting to work with Bernard Purdy earlier. I think everybody should hear that story.
Yeah, that is definitely one of my all-time favorite memories.
Since this is Tales from the gig.
Yeah. Let's see. I was involved in a spin-off project from the Badleys, which is, they were on the charts. You may not remember who they are, but they're local big.
Oh, okay.
They made a record deal and everything. Anyhow, Jeff Feltenberger put together a spin-off. He had left the band, I think. He wanted it, and then they got my name through J.R. Mangan, who is the owner of Cafe 210 in State College, by the way.
Yeah.
Keep note of that.
I think that's on my
get
list.
a gig up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he called, their manager, Terry Selders, knew J.R. I think they went to school together or something like that. So he called J.R. and asked him about a drummer. And J.R. said, call me, gave him my name. So I came down and this and that. And then Jeff worked over at After Seven Studios over in New Cumberland, which is no longer there. It's a bank now, which was owned by Robert Richardson. For anybody local, that he's been the keyboard player for Hybrid Ice. And I was in a prog band with him called Cell 15. So he owned the studio, and he had an artist come in named Nathan Visheko. And so we did some work at that studio. Then when they went to a new studio over, I forget what, Simpson Ferry Road, they got a call, and I was doing some work with Robert or something. Can't exactly remember, but I heard them talk about that Nathan was coming in, and Nathan was hiring Bernard Purdy and Wilbur Bascom to play drums and bass for him.
It's a hell of a rhythm section.
Yeah. Just to...
That's like I'm getting Steve Gadd and Nathan East to come sit in on this
Oh,
section.
my gosh. Yes. Right. So I was just like, dude, you got to let me sit in. I swear I will get coffee for you. I will get lunch. I will clean the toilet. I will do whatever. I'll sit in the back. You
Paint
won't
me to
even,
look like the wall.
Yes.
You won't even know I'm here.
You won't know I'm here. I'll carry all the gear and then get out of the way. Do whatever you want. Just be around Bernard and everything. And anybody who doesn't know, we don't need to tell who Bernard is. He's played for so many things. But
definitely any musician will know who he is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wilbur Bascom.
Christ, he's got a style named after him.
Exactly. Pretty Purdy. The Purdy Shuffle.
Yep.
But Wilbur Wilbur worked with Bernard as well, and they played for James Brown and Hank Crawford, Bo Diddley, B.B. King, all those guys. So that these two cats are in the studio, and it was just amazing. Not only to watch them play and hear them, but hear their dialogue, how they talk to each other.
Now, was this just like a pickup session? Like they were just coming in to play on a track, or what was the...
They were hired for the whole album.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. But it wasn't like a band they had worked with. They were hired in as the rhythm section for
they were hired
the
in
artist.
as the rhythm section. I think Robert played a lot of the key parts.
Which a lot of people don't realize. Any famous musician, on an instrument, that's what they do to make money.
Yeah.
It's not them like going out and playing shows. They're doing session work. That's why they all live in Nashville.
Yep.
It's any of your favorite guys, like they've played on records that you don't realize.
Yes. So yeah, it was just, it's indescribable. Not only to watch them work, but then they started telling stories too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Of course, I don't remember them all, but I just remember being just awestruck
Of course,
by
yeah,
their stories.
yeah.
They're talking about Bernard did some things with the Rolling Stones.
Jesus.
And he's
I'm
saying,
sure he's talking about it like we were just talking about the bands we've played with.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, just did some work with those guys.
he did some session work or something. I'm not really, not that anything was wrong with Charlie's playing, but I don't remember why they were in it. But I always think it was just funny. He said that like the Stones ran a studio for like a year,
Right.
And they just kind of show up here, there.
I know they did that with
knows.
Muscle Shoals. Yeah,
Yeah.
they booked out like 6 months of time, and they're paying an engineer to sit there just in case they happen by the studio to
And they
record.
might come in at 3:00 in the morning and
Yep.
suddenly just decide they're going to come in
Yep.
and record, and that's the way it was. And I remember them telling those stories and everything. And then one of my favorite moments was they were recording a song of Nathan's. It's called "Never Be Your Baby." It's on his "I Love a Worried Woman" album, and we'll play it here. Just a clip in the middle in a minute, but. I remember they started out in as a acoustic guitar and drums, just hi-hat, kick, and a cross-stick rim click. But there was this other sound going on, and I'm like, is somebody playing a shaker? And I'm looking, I was like, no, nobody's playing a shaker. Wilbur's in there, Nathan's there, he's playing drums. So finally I lifted up a little higher, I could see over the cymbal, and here Bernard is playing ghost notes. Any drummer knows what ghost notes, little quiet notes in between. With his pinky, ring finger, and middle finger while playing with the cross stick in his other hand. And so he would do the ghost notes with his little fingers in between. And I just like, fuck.
Let's play a quick sound sample of that so the people can hear. All right, so there it was.
Yeah. And, what can you say there? But, watching a master work like that and hearing the stories, just, I'm so grateful for Nathan allowing me to sit in, and, of course, Robert and Jason as well. But incidentally, I played all the percussion tracks on that album. And then Nathan hired me to play all the live tracks. So then I had to go learn all the
Learn all of his
Bernard's parts, which I was a struggle, certainly, but it taught me a ton.
That's really cool.
And I'm absolutely grateful for those guys letting me do that opportunity. So.
Yeah, it's anytime a lot of people who aren't musicians don't realize what a big deal that is for musicians. Getting to just be in the same space as the guys that we look up to. I'm trying to think. There's so many examples. I'm trying to think of one, especially in a space that's not a concert space, something more intimate like that. Because the studio is when we're working. Like as a working musician, we're not performing in there. That's where we're working. So that's probably, I'd say, where you're the least guarded. When we're on stage, we've got a persona. We've got Chelsea, my wife, laughs all the time that I have a different voice when I'm on the microphone at a gig, and I do.
It's the entertainment factor.
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's Colin the singer, not us just chit chatting and bullshitting, and that's the whole point of this podcast. Really, that's actually a great tie-in. Is we want to have guys on in that setting, because a lot of the guys that we've already got lined up, I've gigged with them. I know them that way, but I don't know that. And a lot of them I know really well outside. That's why I'm really excited to have them. But just being able to have that kind of conversation, and for their fans to be able to listen like the fly on the wall. Like you're talking about, hearing those guys tell those stories and just bullshit with each other. Right. That's my favorite thing about being a musician. Yep. I love having like musician barbecues where you have 20 guys over and you'll jam some, but the music is almost secondary. Yeah. It's hearing those crazy stories.
And all the spouses are over there because they're like, oh, those guys are
telling
over
these
there
stupid bullshit stories again. Yeah, exactly. And they're up talking shit on us. And we may be giving ourselves too much credit. They're probably not talking about us at all. I'm sure they're doing their own thing. But they that's my favorite thing about it. And when you get to know a musician like that, and I don't think a lot of the people who listen to our music or come out to see us get that chance, right? Because even when we talk to audience members, I don't want to say fans, because we're not selling ticketed shows. Not all of us are. Kevin and I definitely aren't right now. Yet. We're working on it. But when we meet people at a bar and they come up and chat with us, we're still putting on that face. We're still like giving that performance to them. I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody at one of the bars, with a very few exceptions, how you and I bullshit with each other. It's toned down from how we are on stage, but it's still a persona. We're very, we don't talk politics, we don't talk religion. I try not to curse when I'm talking to them, and anybody who knows me knows I have a fucking filthy mouth, but that just things like that. And I think the people that we have coming, getting to hear those musicians in that light, I think will be really cool. That was my thought with this, is absolutely Charlie telling those gig stories. And I remember a few of them he's posted on Facebook. He never used names. Charlie's not that type of guy. Anybody that knows him knows he's the nicest person you'll ever meet. He wouldn't harm a fly, but he's posting those stories on his Facebook page like we would chat here. Right. The problem is, of course, he's got friends on his Facebook page that aren't his friends, that think he's being malicious with it. If he's talking about somebody who came out to a gig and was rude and interrupted the show, or some of them, he's literally had people walk on stage and start playing instruments like while the band was playing. Like, not even on breaks, not okay either, but like they're literally up there playing. He had one girl who brought a clarinet and just walked up and started playing it.
Like a harmonica player. Oops, sorry.
Yeah. But it's true.
Do you have any
super true.
Players?
No,
I don't have any harmonica.
No, and I don't want any of them to listen to us. So that's fine.
No offense, guys.
Yeah, we're just kidding, sort of. But when he posted that story, that's the type of story, if we were sitting around in my basement bullshitting, we would be laughing about. Right. But I remember he had people get up in arms with the whole professional offended culture, that I can't believe you would call this poor girl out. She was just trying to be a part of your show. And of course, the people who are saying that aren't working musicians, and don't understand the circumstance that he's posting that in. He's not, he didn't use the girl's name. Right. He didn't post a picture of her. He just said a girl. Yeah. The person who commented just happened to be there and knew who the girl was. Okay. But she's the only one who knew who the girl was. He was just saying, can you believe some people? But Facebook because and Charlie's one of those guys that he's very generous with his time and his personal life. So he's got like 3,500 friends on Facebook. Right. So like anybody who's ever seen him play is his friend on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So people will pop up that he doesn't even know who the hell it is. It's somebody who saw him at a bar 2 years ago that sent him a friend request. Mm-hmm. I'm guarded. I don't, if I haven't had a personal conversation with you, we're not friends on Facebook, but seeing that, I remember that interaction specifically being like, there needs to be another outlet for this. Mm-hmm. Like we need to give, and I get the feeling Charlie will probably be a regular on the show. I don't think it's not going to be a one-time chat with him, or if it is, it's going to be an 8.5 hour long podcast. But all of us have those, and I think having a place to where if somebody wants to hear those stories, they can. But if they don't, cool, don't listen. It's not for everybody. One of those such stories is my favorite weird thing that's happened to me at a gig. That since we did say this first episode is our tales from the gig. I love this story. It's the strangest thing that's ever happened to me on a gig. It's performance based, so I think it fits with this. But and it actually involves Kevin, sax player that I was talking about previously. Uh-huh. We were playing a gig with our band Sasbo that we had for years, probably a decade or longer, with Brian Fagan, great bass player that Kevin went to high school with.
Related to Donald?
No, that would be all. I mean, maybe it's spelled the same, but not directly. But really good bass player, good guy. And then Aaron Hughes, which some drummers know, Aha Drums. They were a local drum maker out of Georgia.
Right.
But
heard of them,
Aha is Aaron. The AH and Aha is Aaron Hughes. Uh-huh. But you'd never know it from meeting him. Nicest guy, very down to earth, builds amazing drums, and phenomenal drummer. Grew for days. We'd always joke about him and Brian. They wouldn't get a pocket, they'd dig a trench. You know.
Right on.
But we were playing this show down. It's called the Bullpen in close to the Braves Stadium in Atlanta. And that area of town, when there's not a Braves game going on, is kind of desolate. Like there's not a whole lot going on, and there wasn't a game, so it was pretty desolate that night. We had our people out that lived in town. We were playing this show. This girl shows up, and I'm going to use her name. I don't really care because I'm pretty confident she's not going to listen to this. And hundreds of people have heard this story. Her name was Caroline. I'll never forget sweet, sweet Caroline.
Oh,
she showed up and went and sat in a booth, and there were only probably 10 or 15 people though. Standard Saturday night gig for most of us. And we went on break, and she came up and started chatting us up, and she was one of these people. Immediately, she's crazy. Like you can tell it's like the
neon sign is going off behind top of her head there. Someone
has lost the plot. Yeah. Like something's not lining up like it's supposed to.
And you're like, please, somebody come rescue me.
Yeah, we were all pretty ruthless with that. Of Brian, because he was the nicest, was in front and thought we were all still talking to her, and then he turned around to get saved and realized we had all bailed on him. So he talked to him for the break basically. And we come to find out through him chatting with sweet Caroline that she was a flautist and was there to meet her new producer, I guess to work on her flute record. We never really got an explanation of what her producer was doing, but that she had her flute with her and would love to sit in with the band, which, because everyone else that was there was with us, we, of course, were like, yes. That 100% has to happen. For whatever reason, that band, we loved having weirdos sit in with us. It was just, it's fun, and sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's a disaster. Right. It's always a story.
Right.
So Caroline went and grabbed her flute out of the car or whatever she was in and came up. The stage was a standard stage, 3 feet with like 3 or 4 steps up. Insisted on sitting on the steps. Instead of standing with the band. So we ran our microphone. Come to find out from my mom later that she was in a mini skirt, no underwear, much to the chagrin of everyone that was in the crowd. But proceeded to, we asked her what key she wanted, and she said she didn't care, which is never a great sign. And we said, well, how about we just play like a 12 bar? That's pretty middle of the road if we don't know where somebody's at. And we picked C. It's concert C. It's like the standard key for a wind instrument.
Couple of changes, it should be easy.
Yeah. So straight into it, we realize immediately she doesn't know how to play the flute. She's making noise on it, but like it's nonsense. Like, I mean, it's almost to the point of free jazz. If it was intentional, it probably could have been free jazz. So Kevin and I are looking at each other. Aaron and Brian are both like, guys, we have to stop this. And we're both like, no, like we're gonna milk this. This is awesome. Right, yeah. So she says onto the mic, it's because I don't have my flute gloves on, and takes satin gloves out and puts them on. That did not fix the problem. So she then says, no, wait, I need to take the gloves off. Takes the gloves off.
Uh-huh.
She then develops what we, for years, have called jazz Tourette's. So she would play a lick, not in any key, of course, and then moan the name of a jazz musician. So her go-to was Mingus, like Charles Mingus. So she would play this weird, like, little, like, lick and then just go Mingus into the microphone. We were dying, of course, on stage. We got through the song, took a break, of course, called her up at the end of the set so you can get out of it pretty easily.
Right.
Her producer never showed.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And we got back up. I guess she thought we were going to ask her back up. We started playing. She came to the front of the stage and yelled, I guess I didn't get the gig, boys, and walked out of our lives forever. And that was Caroline.
You're just wondering, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was, that band told that story to everyone we ever met after that. That was, it was the strangest, like, had we not all seen her, I wouldn't believe 100% that it had happened.
The mumbling of the name after
it was the jazz Tourette's, and it got to where we would do that, like, just to make each other laugh, like, while we were playing. Aaron would do it and be like, he would say a drummer, Max Roach or whatever. Max Roach. It was the strangest thing that's ever happened to me at a show. And I knew when we decided the format of this podcast, that had to be my first story that I told, because it doesn't get any better for me for that.
Gosh, like we were talking before, it's like I can't remember a lot of mine.
I know there's ones I'm not remembering.
And honestly, it's not because of being inebriated,
right?
Because everybody, it's free and alcohol at times, but I've never been much of a drinker, and I couldn't smoke weed during gigs. As a couple of guys will tell you, they were always trying to get, but I can't remember. I'd be getting into
I'm the same
song.
way. I've got to be sober while I'm playing.
I can't remember. Is this the first verse? The last one? Is this the bridge? What are we doing?
Yeah, no judgment against guys that do play messed up. I've never been able to.
Yep.
Oh, I get one drink and all of a sudden I get paranoid that I'm going to forget lyrics or forget what I'm doing. And
I just don't like the way alcohol makes me feel anymore.
Yeah, and I've always looked at it like I'm being paid to be there. I need to be on my best, and I'm not on my best. When I know there are guys that are, when they drink or smoke or anything. I've just never been that guy.
Yeah, I've tried, but weed will take the edge off for me now.
Yeah,
and my tolerance is a lot different, but. There's a story for everybody, right?
Yes,
musicians smoke weed.
We'll do a whole episode on tolerances.
What are we supposed to do?
That's right.
Of course, just for the record, we're medical patients.
Exactly.
We're totally legal in the state of Pennsylvania, so don't anybody get your
and you don't know my address, so it's okay.
Whatever.
But
I think it goes
with
artists.
I know we were talking about trying to remember stories. Do you have one like stellar gig that stands out for you as either as like a benchmark or like we've all got those like chapter heads of like this gig felt like I was moving into a new stage or onto something.
Yeah, actually,
for the positive or negative, But do you have something that stands out?
There was one actually, and it's kind of it goes right back to Jeff Feltenberger, and the band was called Sweet Pea Felty.
Nice.
It was an odd name, but his last name is Feltenberger, and it was like this play on words. But anyhow,
gotta love a good music pun.
Yeah. Do you remember? It was a hurricane, the New Orleans one.
Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina, and they had a big fundraiser out here.
We all played lots of Hurricane Katrina reliefs. Yeah, in like 2006, 2007, around there.
I can't remember the date and all, but this one was at the Whitaker Center, and so we performed there, and it was just anybody who's been over to the Whitaker Center in Harrisburg here, it's a gorgeous venue, real top professional sound and lights and everything, and it was one of those gigs where you just felt like everything really went well that night. That band didn't play a lot of gigs, but the ones we did was, really amazing.
That's cool. I've been in a few bands like that where it's quality instead of quantity.
And me as a performer, I had those moments where you're out of body or however you want to, everything is this, the energy on stage is like, you don't know anything else is going on. Everything's flowing. Yeah. And it's like the music's just coming right through you. You're not thinking about the licks you're going to play or anything. It's just flowing. And I do remember going home that night thinking, wow, I think I've made another step. Not the step to the big or whatever, but I just felt like I had, performance-wise, individually, band and everything.
Makes up for the 100 garbage gigs you had
It
played
did.
leading up to that. Yeah.
Of course, that band broke up after that gig.
That's pretty standard.
Yes. I was like, oh, shit. So, well, what do you do?
Yep.
But, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And gosh, who were the guys on that? Sweet Pea, or Jeff, Craig Cady. I think, Robert came in and played bass because for some reason we couldn't get our bass player couldn't play it. So Robert Richardson of Hybrid Ice came in and literally read the show down.
Nice.
In the green room, figure out, no, it goes this way. So
That's cool.
yeah, that's one of those worst gigs. Ugh. I don't know.
You don't have to bring up negative memories if you don't want to. There's so many.
I've worked so many shitty mountain bars. No offense to the owners and stuff. I won't mention any of those anyways, but
Because hopefully they'll book us.
yeah. Oh gosh, the place that you go outside to pee because you don't want to use the bathroom because it's just horrible in there.
I think most of the negative memories that musicians have are from the apathetic crowds.
Yeah.
I think even the negative gigs, you get an energy from it.
Yeah.
If you get to the like, well, that was shitty, but the apathetic ones
Like
where you
just sitting at the bar, they don't even pay
and-
attention to anything.
And I think any musician listening has had more of these moments than any of the others where you have that like transcendent moment musically. You get done and it's bird chirps. Yeah. That's or cricket chirps.
Yep.
Something's chirping. Like that's a little like soul crushing when that happens. Because it's one thing if you're just playing a shit gig. The music's not going well, the crowd's not into it, there's no crowd, and you just get to the end, you're like, all right, we just need to muscle through the next 3 hours.
Yep. Blue collar gig, just do your job.
Yeah. It's paying gas to get to the next gig, whatever it is. But those ones where you think you're having a moment, or you are having a moment, and the crowd is not, because they're watching. Yeah, they're watching the fucking football game or whatever, soccer, the World Cup's on, and they're watching that. Or the club asks you to wait until the end of the baseball game, or the end of the football game, so you're going on an hour late, and the crowd's already so drunk they could not care less. They just want to hear Molly Hatchet or any of that shit. And the one guy who thinks he's the first guy on the planet to yell "Freebird." And yeah, those are the roughest ones for me. Are those where the what's happening in the band doesn't match what's happening in the crowd.
Right.
Because when the crowd links into that, it's amazing.
Well, that's
to
me, and I've said this to so many people, that's what it's about for me.
Yep.
I keep doing this.
Yeah.
For those brief moments or long moments in the middle of a song where everything's flowing and you're like, wow, what in the hell
what's
is
happening?
That? What is going on?
Yeah.
And you can't describe it.
Unfortunately, a lot of times those shows are the short ones. You're doing a 45-minute opening set, and you're like, God, I could have played for 10 hours.
Yep.
Yeah,
been there with that, and it is our crack for that matter.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
that's otherwise. If I wouldn't be going for that again every time, I would have got out of this.
Yep, that is the dragon we are chasing.
And the thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that moment can happen in a shitty mountain bar.
Totally. Yeah, if the
Or
8 guys that are in there are into what you're doing, it doesn't need to be to 1,000 people. That's in fact most of those memories I have. A lot are from the cigar bar Maxwell's in Woodstock in Atlanta. It's to 20, 25 people, but they're all just tuned in, and it's there's nothing like it. It's hard to describe it to somebody who's not a performer.
It's the energy. That's the addiction that I have.
Yeah,
the energy. Well, as you know, when you're on stage as the band doing it, but then if the crowd's into it too, all that collective energy in a room is so addicting.
Yep.
I've experienced that. I was in a couple of bands that were very, very successful. One was called Foxy. With double X's in the middle. You can imagine why we use that.
Makes it sexier.
Yes, it did too. I mean, like one of those stories is we played every Saturday night for like 3 years downtown State College at the Saloon. It's a basement bar.
Right.
And it's just weird, you're in this. When you loading in at 6 o'clock or whatever it is, and you open the door and it smells like puke and nasty moldy beer, and you go, I can't wait to play.
Yep. Can't wait for the music to start so I can sit in the only clean spot in the room.
Yeah, and we played to so many packed places there. I mean, there's times I remember St. Patty's Day. I'm sure it was Patty is thing with State College. They have had to change it because it gets really crazy up there.
Oh, yeah.
But it was so packed that we couldn't get off the stage to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, there's
or
nowhere to
anything.
go.
No,
Yeah, that's
breaks,
cool.
we just stayed on stage.
Yep.
And they would, it's one of the reasons they'd bring this big tub beer and everything else in it and all. And, that energy. I don't care if we were playing Honky Tonk Woman for the 50 millionth time.
I was going to say, that's a lot of things people don't realize is it doesn't have to be original music.
No.
And there are guys that only get off playing original music, and that's awesome.
Yep.
And there's guys that have no interest in doing original music, and that's cool too. But a lot of people that listen think that if you're in a cover band, there's no fulfillment from it. And some of the best musical moments for me have been doing covers.
Yeah.
Or you're locked in with the other guys, and you go into another cover, without talking about it.
Right.
When that
Somebody
happens,
just leads, and all of a sudden we're
and you're like, holy shit, we're playing this song.
Right.
Like, that's so cool. And yeah, that usually happens, of course, with covers because it's shit everybody knows.
Right.
Or you figure out, like, hey, these two songs work together and we do these mashups and things like that. There's so much you can get fulfilled creatively from playing other people's songs.
And you're learning your craft.
Exactly.
Not to get on a pedestal or a platform here and all, but so many people that look down upon cover bands. I learned so much.
And some of the best players you'll ever see are in those cover bands.
Yep.
Not some shitty ones too, but
like I said, Billy Ziegler, Stan Orndorff, Johnny X, those guys, just fantastic players. And I learned so much from them. And they're so much, I'm like 16, 18 years older than me.
Yeah.
And just Stan with his boot tapping out the time for me because he didn't like where the tempo was. But I was like, oh, he's right.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
You learn those things, and that's where you learn your craft. So, another PSA out there, kids. Play the cover bands.
Play the covers. Play genres you don't necessarily like.
Yeah.
Some of the most fun I've had is playing country, which I'm just not a big country fan, but
I played a lot
some of that
country.
music's a blast. I'm from Georgia. You want to talk about playing a lot of country? Yes. But doing stuff like that, and you can find a musician who loves what they do can find something to love in any genre they're playing.
I played a circus band one summer.
Why the hell not? Were you the tuba player? That's the full circle moment that we were looking for?
I was the drummer, doing
Oompas.
crash, and you had to watch the gymnasts and everything.
Yep. Yeah, I did in high school and out of high school. I did a bunch of musicals, or I was in the pit because I could do. Yeah, I could read charts. There's not a lot of guys that can read sheet music.
Exactly.
And I loved that, playing Little Shop of Horrors. I remember getting the book for that. I'm like, holy shit, this music's awesome.
Yeah.
And the band they had hired were all killers. I was by far the least talented member, that.
And you're
that
like,
bit.
oh fuck, I gotta.
Yeah. And there's a couple spots where it's saying like vamp on like 70s funk, and I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, oh shit, all right. I guess I need to go home
learn
learn some 70s
yeah,
funk.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I played those shows too.
Yeah, stuff like that's is so cool, and it's not. You don't have to create new music to get off.
No.
I guess we played a show. Probably my favorite gig memory was recent, last year before. We opened for Papa Chubby, which he's pretty well known in the Northeast. He's from New York, but blues guitar player. Legendary indie artist. He's always been an indie artist, and this guy, one of those guys that plays 300 dates a year. He's just a road dog and put out a bunch of records, and he's been in it 30 plus years. And I remember hearing him in the early 90s. One of the first blues guitar players I heard that didn't sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Post Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right.
He definitely had his own style, and he does Texas style blues. A lot of his stuff is that chunka, but you could tell it wasn't a guy trying to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I thought that was interesting
because everybody was doing that.
Yeah, especially early 90s.
Yeah,
as soon as Stevie passed, everyone dime a dozen. You couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting, and you can still find them, and some of them progressed, and some of them didn't. But I remember hearing him. I was like, man, that's really unique. So there's a club we played in Atlanta, Rocco's. Shout out to Rocco's, Jasper, Georgia. That was always very supportive of us. Joel and I played there every Wednesday night for a long time. He'd give us regular weekend dates, and he got subsidized by a local company that wanted him to start bringing in bigger acts because Jasper is a mountain town. There's not a lot up there. His is really the only live music venue. And he put a shitload of money into the PA, full QSC Pro, flown, rig and everything, and paid two sound guys to be there for every band that came in, mic'd everything up. I mean, it was a legit club kind of in the middle of nowhere, and still is. They're still very active, and but they, of course, would attract people from miles around because, I mean, it was, and what started as their patio, they enclosed, built a real stage, and it became like a 150-seat, 200-seat music venue out on a deck. It was really cool. But yeah, Rocco started bringing in national acts. And I remember he sent me a list of guys that he had booked already and said, hey, who do you want to open for? Because they were letting local acts open for these national guys that were coming through. How music clubs are supposed to work, everybody who's listening.
Exactly. Hint, hint.
Yeah, and I remember seeing Papa Chubby on that list. I was like, holy shit. And I remember there was some killers on there. Samantha Fish was on there. Albert Castiglia. Who else? It doesn't matter. But what I consider big artists in like the indie blues scene.
Right.
And no Bonamasas, guys like that. But guys that sell out 500-seat theaters are coming to this club. I mean, it's just a local bar that I think that's where we go to eat wings and shit like that. So as soon as I saw Papa Chubby, I was like, Rocco, I don't care, who you put on this other shit. We have to be the opening act for that. And he sold out in like a week and a half. When they announced, it was immediately sold out. And that was the first sold out crowd I played to. And like we always talk about with like once it's a ticketed show, you can play what you want for them, when they're paying to come see your music. This was the first time I really got to do that in a 90-minute set, which is pretty rare for an opening act.
Yeah.
He gave us 90 minutes, which was
it's only like a half hour if you're lucky.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, shit. So I was adamant. We're doing 90 minutes of original music. We did one cover. It was Home by Mark Broussard. That was the only cover we played that night. Other than little like the snippets that we throw into the middle of our own songs. But we did the show, and I'd say, I think there were probably 200, 250 people there. Maybe 50 of them knew us, and getting to play but they were fans of Papa Chubby's blues rock. So I knew we'd cross over well enough, and that was one of those, the stars aligned. I don't remember anything that happened while we were on stage.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, it was like an out of body experience, but we had so many people come up afterwards and say it was one of the best performances we've ever seen. You guys were incredible. It was all originals, which that was really cool to me, that they were into our music. They bought CDs and t-shirts that night, and Papa Chubby didn't have to be, and was very complimentary and very gracious and chatted with us. And, you always hear about like meeting your idols, and the people always talking about, and I've heard horror stories,
about
of that.
Idols at times,
and to the point, it was silly because I'm in my 30s, but I was kind of nervous to meet the guy because it was like, I really hope he's not a dick. Because I've always loved his music, and he wasn't. He was such a nice guy. He chatted to me about the gear we use because we're both Strat players. He chatted to me about like my amp, and we were talking back and forth. We got a picture after. He was just a nice guy. His band, his rhythm section were super nice guys too. We hung out. It was just really cool. And that was, like you said, that's like our crack. Like that kept me going, through the move and everything, to not just bail and say, fuck it, I'm just not going to play anymore. It's like, we can get that back, and that was probably my favorite.
It's all about that energy.
It is.
I think that to be an artist, you have to have some sort of an ego because you have to get out there.
And be a little fucked up.
Yeah, we all are, and there's no doubt. Yeah, my girlfriend will tell you exactly that much.
Anyhow. I was going to say your girlfriend and Chelsea they'll start their own podcast of Tales from the Gig, where they can tell everybody how screwed up we are.
The real tales.
Yeah, exactly.
Real tales at home from the gig. But to me, it's always been, I think nobody will deny when we're kids, we all have these dreams of being stars up on the big stage and that and stuff like that. But I don't remember when, but it didn't last very long. To me, it was always about just that energy. I just loved it. I continue to, why would we drive 2 hours to make basically nothing with a car full of gear and driving home in the middle of the night? And why would you do that stuff?
Reeking of cigarette smoke.
Exactly.
And,
oh my God.
Getting pulled over because only criminals and drunks are out driving at 4 a.m.
At 4 o'clock in the morning.
So every cop on the planet pulling you over, and then you smell like cigarettes, so giving you a field sobriety test. Trying to explain, no, sir, I was
went
working.
Through that. I'm so glad.
I would get it all. I just look like a criminal, apparently. But yeah, But yeah, and there's a meme that floats around on Facebook that every time I see it, I share it because it's super true. And it's one of those. It's like a list of things you don't know about your musician friends. One of them that always sticks out though is that making it doesn't mean selling out an arena.
Exactly.
Every musician has what making it is for them, and it's true. I mean, it's. We all want to make a living. That would be ideal. But even if you can't, there's little milestones that you hit, whether it's putting a band together, whether it's playing your first show if you've never done it before, whether it's, like mine right now would be our first ticketed show, where we can sell out a club, so people buying tickets to come see us play, that kind of thing.
I've always wanted to do that. That's why that Whitaker Center gear, the
Yeah.
theater, just was so perfect.
Yep. Yeah, and that's like my current making it. When we hit that, we'll have the next one. And I think
you set another goal for yourself, basically.
I think we'll find everybody we talk to has something.
Agreed.
They've got whatever their next making it is, and people always assume it's like, well, you're not a rock star. It's like, I don't want to be a fucking rock star.
We've all seen all the behind the music.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm not going to push it away.
But we've like Kevin said, we've all seen the behind the musics. We've all seen the TMZ bullshit of
all the documentaries.
And Mick Jagger not being able to go out in public. And so that's not appealing to most guys. That's a side effect of your music happening to strike a chord.
Barry Manilow is another example.
Yeah.
I worked for him when I was working at the Bryce Jordan Center up in State College, and literally there was so many death threats that apparently he had to deal
crazy.
with and all. I mean, I don't. There's always so many other backstories, but we weren't allowed to go in the hallway that he was in when he was inside a room in that hallway, because that's where
which somebody who doesn't know that story thinks, what an asshole.
Yeah, no, he was being protected for his life.
Yeah,
and
that's
everything.
crazy.
And I don't have any interest in any of that shit.
Yeah.
I have a great amount of sympathy for people that like that.
Yeah, just because they make music.
Yeah,
and they've become a celebrity. Yeah, that's difficult. But yeah, people, that's what our podcast is about. So we've got some guys on the books that we're going to be interviewing in the next month or so. Right now, it's all guys. Hopefully, we can get some ladies in to give their perspective. We may bring wives in. That might be an interesting.
Could be.
I'd love to hear wives' tales of the. I know Chelsea's got a few good ones. And, that might be an interesting angle we hadn't considered.
Maybe a special.
Yeah. We'll do a special Valentine's Day episode. Maybe next Valentine's Day.
Your next one.
And or Mother's Day. That might be a good one. But yeah, we've got. I'll just read you guys off some of the people we've got coming in just this month. Actually, tomorrow, from when we're recording this, the great Truett from Atlanta, Georgia, is coming on. He's got a couple records out. He's kind of blowing up touring. I know he just got placement on Shameless. I think he got in 3 or 4 of the episodes in the most recent season, including one of the most dramatic moments of the first episode. He had a full song play, which is, for those of you listening who aren't artists, is a huge deal for an indie artist. Getting TV placement, even on a shitty show, is a big deal. But Shameless is like the #1 show on TV. So, and getting a 10-second snippet's a big deal. He got full song placements on, like I said, a few episodes. So, I got to know Truett. He's a little bit younger than I am. We kind of ran around the same blues clubs in Atlanta, and we've met a few times. And he's one of the ones I'm pretty excited to chat with like this, because we've kind of only met at jams and stuff like that. And you're always turned on being friendly guy, at the jams.
Right.
So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation, and we'll play some of his music so everybody can hear it, and give everybody the links to check him out and hopefully help build his fan base. But we've got David Green coming on, drummer to the Stars. He plays with Jeff Jensen, Brandon Santini, Tennessee Redemption. Tennessee Redemption charted on the Billboard charts this year. Fully independent blues artists out of Memphis. Wow. And he's drumming with them.
Does Billboard really matter anymore?
Yeah, but it's still, to me, it's a pretty big deal. Right? Yeah. As an indie release, they were on
any type of
28 weeks
successes
on the Billboard Blues chart.
Oh, that's awesome.
And all the Roots Music Review and all that stuff. The album's phenomenal. You guys should check out Tennessee Redemption. But David Green's their drummer. He's a good friend of mine. I know he's got some crazy stories. He's always a fun guy, so we're going to chat with him. Of course, Charlie Korch, that you guys have heard us talk about. He may become a monthly fixture on the show. He's just great to talk to. We've got John Blackman coming on, who's played with Jerica Singleton, toured with a lot of good guys. And then I'm very excited towards the end of the month. We've got the legend Barry Richmond coming on, who I've told Kevin stories of Barry. Atlanta music legend. Anyone who's been in the Atlanta area knows who Barry is, but he's played with literally everyone. The Allman Brothers, Warren Haynes. He's got pictures of him jamming with Eric Johnson, Les Paul, Marshall Tucker.
Wow.
Zach Brown. He was in Zach Brown's band for a long time. And he's one of these guys. He's a living legend, best guitar player you'll ever see. And you can go out and see him at local bars in Atlanta. He plays, 6 nights a week at the same bars we all play at. So it's pretty crazy. I was lucky enough to sing in his band for a little while, filling in. And I know Barry's got some stories, and he's just a super nice guy. We'll probably spend the whole time talking to him about his gear. His gear collection is insanity.
What, is it like Bonamassa's?
It's pretty damn close. Right. I mean, it's nobody's is like Bonamassa's, but it's. I mean, you'll be at a jam and he'll bring out a 61 Strat, a 61 Rosewood Stoptail Strat that they made like 4 of. He's got Trini Lopez's that Dave Grohl's called him trying to buy from him that he won't sell to him. So hey, it's just I know he's going to have some good stories for us, but. Yeah, the next episode will be Truett when we talk to him. So we're going to close out the show today with a little sneak preview of his music. But before we go, I'll tell you guys where you can find us. Go to talesfromthegig.com or look up Tales from the Gig on Facebook. And you can get our stream on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere great podcasts are pervade. Any closing remarks, Kevin?
No, I was just going to say, as we started to say in the beginning, to pitch our own selves. Right now we're doing a duo between us.
Yep.
Full plans to have a full band, so we're still searching for a bass player.
Yes.
Unless we can really twist.
Yeah, we're working on Joel. We're trying to get him to fall in love with the North.
Come on, Joel. It's nice and cold up here.
Yes.
If that's good for him or not.
Yeah,
it's good for you.
I enjoy it. So.
Colin's been saying how he loves the cold. I'm like, oh, God, I want to go south.
So we'll be making trips to Georgia.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're still looking at that. We're doing some duos around town, and our first gig is February 21st.
Full band, at Route 61 Roadhouse in Sunbury, PA. If you guys are in the Susquehanna Valley area, come see us. We're actually flying Joel in for that gig, so that's how we're going to try to wine and dine him and entice him to move up here.
Get him here, yeah.
But we'll be playing our music too on the show, so you guys can check us out. I think we're. By the time this airs, we'll have a theme song. It's probably going to be one of ours.
Yep.
But we'll talk about that more once we've selected what it is. We haven't selected it as of recording. But
I'm sure as we go on and hear stories, we'll remember other stories. I've played so many country gigs and festivals and fairs and all those things. I just honestly don't remember.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they'll, like you said, talking to guys, they'll being able to get that conversation. We're going to be recording on Skype, so you guys will, at some point we'll have video. You guys will be able to see who we're talking to, and should be a good time. But that's it for our first episode, guys. We're going to close out with some music from Truett. Y'all be good.
See you next time.